opportunities to measure those things a bit. And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith-Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread water, because I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength, we need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
These guys are barreling everything right now that are hitting well. Pitching is usually ahead of hitting this time of year, but torpedo bats is what we're reading about, Tom, and I think it's hilarious.
Will the pitching be out in front, or are the bats actually this strong? So it's going to develop over the course of weeks. And again, if all teams have the ability to do so, be creative with it and get out there and use it.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the mood between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It is day one of the Masters. We have you covered with all of the action as several players have already teed off at Augusta. And of course, we'll preview the rest of the day and the weekend with Brady Kannon of SportsGrid. See if you can take advantage of some information, basically, hopefully, that we can give you to play some bets this weekend. In addition, Adam Kaufman will join us. We'll talk some NBA. Very emotional game last night for Luka Doncic. We'll hear from him later in the show. And also Simon Applebaum. The podcast tomorrow will be televised. But naturally, this morning, what a great sight it was to see with Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player and Tom Watson all on that first tee, the honorable first tee to lead the day off at the Masters early this morning, 7:30 a.m. Since then, here's the updated leaderboard. Again, very preliminary, but this is where we are at. Good start for those of you backing Aaron Ray. He's 3 under par right now. He's about halfway through his day right now at Augusta. Chris Kirk is 2 under par. Joaquin Niemann also 2 under. And as you can see, the remainder of the leaderboard there, none of the big names thus far have really not teed off for the most part. So we'll keep an eye on it as we go. It's only 11 a.m. Eastern, of course, at Augusta National. But by this afternoon, and by the time Pharrell comes on the show, 3 o'clock Eastern, we'll have a much better idea as to who could be the round one leader at the Masters today. Meanwhile, last night, very emotional night in Dallas, Texas, as Luka Doncic returned home for the very first time since being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. And wouldn't you know, he had a huge game. 45 points. It was his season high, and the Lakers end up winning this one 112-97. Dallas, with the loss, is now guaranteed a losing record a year after making the NBA Finals. It's been a tough year for them, to say the least. They still can finish and make the play-in game if all goes well over the next few days. But the story were those T-shirts last night given to Mavericks fans, bidding farewell one final time to Luka, who was crying and was very emotional post-game, talking about his return to the Lone Star State.
Luka, how did you go from the emotions of the video and the fans and the reception and everything to then, playing the way that you played?
Good question. I don't really know. Like I said, post-game interview, after that video, I was like, there's no way I'm playing this game, It was so many emotions, and, I just went out there and just played basketball.
It was incredible. It was the The fans were great. The tribute was great. Luka's performance was great. It was great. You know, that's who Luka is. I've said that as when he was with the Mavs. He's one of the best players in the world, and he displayed that again tonight.
Does this kind of performance make you regret the organization's decision to give him up?
No, I have a job to do, and that's to coach the players that are in that locker room. We've gone through the groceries, right? So the guys in that locker room, I got to put them in a better position to win, and I just didn't do that tonight.
Tough season for the Mavericks, without a doubt. Meanwhile, a tough season for the San Antonio Spurs, maybe with a glimmer of hope here at the end of the year for the future. They shocked the Warriors, one of the biggest underdog wins of the NBA season, getting 17.5 points and winning the game 114-111 over the Golden State Warriors. My goodness, what was going on last night? Steph Curry after the game talking about how they did not have their best effort early and often.
I think we had two stretches, first half, second half. I don't know the time specific, but where we just got lax defensively and gave up a lot of straight line drives to the basket. We were pretty soft on the ball. They were just driving the paint, getting to the rim, offensive rebounds, or finding open threes. And those two stretches gave them life, gave them the belief that it was worth fighting. And after that first quarter start, you let your foot off the gas pedal and you give a team an ability to make plays. They're an NBA team too. They're going to take advantage of it, and they did.
Denver Nuggets' first game without Mike Malone as head coach, who was fired, is a win for the Nuggets. Nikola Jokic had a huge game again, 32nd triple-double of the season. Let me give you the numbers: 20 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists, as they beat the Kings 124-116. But naturally, after the game, a lot of the focus from Jokic on what the future looks like without Mike Malone on the sidelines.
I mean, if when someone wants to wake somebody up or change energy, that's probably what they do. In my country, if someone gets fired, you're worried it's probably you're the next. So I think it's definitely changed something, and they get the reaction of what they wanted probably.
Nicole, how long is it going to take to get over the shock of Malone getting fired?
I mean, I think in this business you need to, just because playoffs are so right there, and we have two important games, so I think it needs to be quick, really quick.
David was talking about how the vibe wasn't right before. How does the vibe feel different now that Malone's gone?
I mean, definitely change. Like I said, I mean, if you want to change something, that's how we do it, and the owner wanted to do it, so it happens.
All eyes will be on the Nuggets, of course, coming up in the NBA playoffs. Same with the Oklahoma City Thunder, who decided to sit Shai Gilgeous-Alexander yesterday, and it didn't make a difference. Jalen Williams had 33 points, and they crushed the Suns 125-112. Phoenix now eliminated from the playoffs for the first time since 2020. Not a position that Devin Booker talked about liked being in as he closed out the game last night.
I mean, it's been a slow bleed out. I've been feeling this way for majority of the season. I think the small glimpses of, good stretches that we've played, gave me hope and probably gave everybody else hope. So, you never want it to be that you're squeezing into the last spot of the play-in in the first place. So, kind of expected at this point.
Book, this is the first time since 2020 that you haven't been in the playoffs. What do you feel needs to change from this season going to next in order to get back to that stage again?
More than one thing. But, it's the time, the summertime is to digest and, look back, see what went wrong, compare it to, when things were going right, and vocalize that.
Meanwhile, the Miami Heat is going to be in one of the play-in games coming up next week. Chicago Bulls took care of them last night, 28 points, getting 119-111. The Bulls end up winning. Playoff positioning will be set coming up on Sunday. In Major League Baseball last night, Shohei Ohtani went 2 for 4, 2 singles and a walk. Teoscar Hernandez also homered and drove in 3, and the Dodgers beat the Nationals finally this week, one time at least, 6-5. Trey Turner hit a game tie-breaking home run off Raisel Iglesias in the 9th inning. Bryce Harper also had a big home run late. And the Braves keep struggling, and the Phillies keep winning. 4-3 the final there. Also, Padres yesterday playing without Tatis, Cronenworth, and Jackson Merrill. They end up beating the A's 2-1. They win the series. Xander Bogaerts had 3 hits. He did play yesterday. Yankees end up beating the Tigers, salvaging a win there in their series. 4-3 the final. Max Fried went 7 scoreless innings, and he struck out 11. Devin Williams had a hard time closing this one out, so Mark Leiter Jr. got the saves. In Seattle, Randy Arozarena with his biggest game maybe in over a year. He had a grand slam and also the game-winning walk. Seattle beats Houston. Final score of 7-6. How about the Brewers yesterday breaking out the bats against the Rockies? 17-2 the final. Jackson Chourio homered. He also drove in 5 runs. Bo Bichette, also a nice game for the Toronto Blue Jays as he drives in the game-winning run. This went to 11 innings. And the final, Toronto 2, Boston 1. We should mention that Kevin Gausman had 8 innings of shutout baseball. He also struck out 10. Speaking of good pitching performance yesterday, the Marlins got an elite one from Max Meyer and also a home run from Matt Mervis. They beat the Mets 5-0 final from New York. Coming up next, it was the firing heard around the world as Mike Malone is out as head coach of the Denver Nuggets. Where do they go from here, and can they make a run with this new head coach and new team president? Adam Kaufman tells us next.
The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith-Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread waters. I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength. We need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro baseball today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm still optimistic eventually this will happen and they'll get it together. I mean, if Florida can get their act together, Sam, with the Tribes, I believe that California can too.
It would bring a lot of money to the Tribes, which is also something they really care about. It's an $8 billion market. Conservatively, it could be even more when it legalizes. The sports books would be sharing revenue with the Tribes, essentially doing all their operations and forking over a percentage directly to the Tribes.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Aaron Ray with another birdie. He is now 4 under par and the leader at the Masters. We'll have an update on that coming up with Brady Kannon in less than 10 minutes from now. Let's bring in Adam Kaufman, shift over to some NBA. Adam, thanks, by the way, on short notice for appearing on the show today. Really appreciate it. I know you got a busy day ahead of you here, but let's dive into what to make of the Denver Nuggets here. I think Nikola Jokic in that post game sort of, at least sounded pretty indifferent about the moves that were made there, which leads me to believe there's a lot of things that we did not know that were going on behind the scenes, as some people have alluded to here. Adam, I feel like Mike Malone's going to have no issue getting a gig wherever he wants next season, so he'll be just fine. Will the Denver Nuggets regret making this decision? And by the way, making this decision right now?
So there's a lot to unpack, obviously, when it comes to Mike Malone's firing, and a lot that we don't know. You know, we see him dismissed at the same time that Calvin Booth, the general manager, is sent to the door, and these two guys, you know, according to reports that have come out, is there was a rift between them that had formed of late, and there were basically Malone guys, Booth guys. Not everyone was on the same page, and this was the Kroenkes ownership coming in and just saying, look, we generally, you look across all of their teams that they own in the various sports, they don't generally get rid of head coaches unless there's really a problem. I mean, Malone had been one of the longest tenured coaches, obviously, in the NBA and the winningest coach in Denver Nuggets franchise history, and had won a championship. But like you said, to do this only a few days out, few games out from the start of the postseason says that there's just something internally that they viewed as a little bit that it just wasn't fixable in the short term or even necessarily in the long term going forward. And I guess sort of viewed it as a spark to say, you know, we believe in Jokic, we believe in Murray and Gordon and so on and so forth, this roster, and fundamentally what we're capable of internally. It's just to get there, we're going to need to maybe change the pieces as far as who is pulling the strings. As far as Jokic coming off as indifferent, I think there are a couple different ways to look at that. One, Jokic sounded indifferent when he won a championship. Like, this is just not a guy that you know, exudes a whole lot of emotion to begin with. But what he did tell people was, I knew a little bit before everybody, this wasn't a collaborative thing. This was, we've made a decision where we're telling you what we're going to do, and just here's why. And that was sort of what I expected. You know, you're not going to do something of this magnitude, just before the playoffs, as you said, without effectively running it past your superstar. And I do think if Jokic had a gigantic problem with this, he would have stepped up, he would have said something, he would have, you know, attempted to, you know, throw his body in front of the sword that is Mike Malone and try and prevent this. But I think he just, you know, it obviously behind the scenes was a bit worse than anyone was even remotely aware of, and they felt they had to do something going forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Adam, because we are in a players' league at this point where Jokic is far more important, with all due respect to anybody in the Nuggets front office. And you're probably right. I mean, that conversation had to be had before that move was made, just like it has been with LeBron time and time and time and time and time. And how many more times again will happen with him? But Malone had 8 winning seasons, 6 playoff appearances, as I said. Again, my personal belief, Malone will be a coach in the NBA if he wants next year, with several openings that'll happen. Yeah, San Antonio is one that comes to mind if Popovich decides to retire. Okay, so dangerous teams in the NBA playoffs. We know that Golden State is definitely one. I got another one for you, or at least I'm going to ask you, Adam, if you feel this way. It would be the Clippers to me, because again, when Kawhi is right, Kawhi Leonard, I mean, you're talking about a player that took his team almost single-handedly to an NBA championship. It was a long time ago, but he did. All of a sudden, the Clippers are playing great basketball again, and you know, beating up on some bad teams. I do understand that, but they did beat the Rockets last night, as you can see here, 134-117. When teams say this time of the year that this could be a dangerous team in the playoffs, does Los Angeles Clippers come to mind with you, Adam, or is this a little bit of fool's gold?
Well, look, on a very personal level, I'm going to remove those Warriors from the conversation because they cost me a fair chunk of money last night with that fourth quarter meltdown against the Spurs as 17.5-point favorites at home fighting for their playoff lives. I hope, again, very personally, that they don't make the playoffs because I'm just offended by last night's performance. But as far as the Clippers go, you're right. 6 wins in a row, 8 of 10. They've climbed up the Western Conference standings in what is a remarkably competitive West. I mean, the going from basically the 4 seed, because as we know, the Lakers clinched, the 4 seed on down to, you know, 10. Well, not quite 10, but 4 to 8 right now as far as the playoff versus play-in is incredibly competitive, and teams are still jockeying for position here down the stretch of the regular season. I don't see how, and it took me a long while to buy in, but I don't see how you can forget about the Clippers in this conversation when you are talking about favorites or dangerous teams, as you put it, in the Western Conference. Like, to me, I would still rather not see, obviously, Oklahoma City. I'd still rather not see Denver, you know, but I'd rather face Houston, the 2 seed. I'd rather face the Lakers, the 3 seed, than go against the Clippers. I just, because to your point, Kawhi's not going to do it by himself. But when he is going right, and he has been, largely awesome when available this year. I know he doesn't, the whole load management thing, he doesn't play quite as much as he did, some years ago. But when he is out there and down the tail end of this regular season, he has looked really good. Harden has turned it up. He's playing at a great level as well. Those two guys, Zubac is a machine. When Powell is available, I know that's been a little bit inconsistent of late, but this is absolutely a deep and dangerous team, and one that I would not be in a rush to face there in the Western Conference.
Fair enough. Heat Bulls last night. So, the Heat at this point cannot get a home playoff game. They can improve their positioning, but the Bulls won this one. And now it would appear that the Heat absolutely, has no say in the rest of their season, essentially. And by the way, let's skip ahead. And I want to show Adam these final teams for the play-in here. Orlando, Atlanta, Chicago, and Miami. Well, I guess Orlando's okay, Adam, but do we really need this in the NBA? Maybe I'm just old school here, but it feels like, do we really need these play-in games for these bad teams?
No, look, we don't have the time for me to go on and on, belabor this, but I completely agree with you. The play-in tournament is exciting for sure, and Adam Silver has achieved what he wanted in having this, much like, a midseason tournament. But was it necessary? No. 1 through 8 was just fine. This, to me, doesn't really clean up tanking any more than anything else did before.
Great. Thanks, Adam, for popping on. Appreciate it.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread waters. I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength. We need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro baseball today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm still optimistic eventually this will happen and they'll get it together. If Florida can get their act together, Sam, with the Tribes, I believe that California can too.
Would bring a lot of money to the Tribe, which is also something they really care about. It's an $8 billion market. Conservatively, it could be even more when it legalizes. The sports books would be sharing revenue with the Tribes, essentially doing all their operations and forking over a percentage directly to the Tribes.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. We're going to dive now into coming up the Masters. Ludwig Oberg is about to tee off, one of the potential sleepers maybe to win this year. Also, Justin Fields with a new destination. How will things look? And our very own Kevin Walsh talks some NBA. Time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Well, after sulking a few days after the Gators beat Houston and Kevin Walsh suffering on live streaming television, Looks like we got Kevin Walsh back in the house feeling good, getting ready to preview the upcoming NBA playoffs. It has been Oklahoma City in the West from start to finish, but there's no doubt that some teams are making noise as the NBA playoffs are set to begin. Who of those teams are potential sleepers that could upset the Thunder as the playoffs begin? Here's Kevin with his opinion.
The Western Conference market tells us the Oklahoma City Thunder are in a tier of their own, a minus price for quite some time, and the next closest teams are hovering around the 7-1 marker. But who would be the biggest threat to Oklahoma City? Incredibly, they may not have a walkthrough series in any round they play. Round one, it could be Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were in the conference finals last season. Round two, it may just be the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic, and the Denver Nuggets. And albeit Denver's postseason success is not massive, that's not an easy out. The single biggest threat and potentially waiting for Oklahoma City in the conference finals, it's the Los Angeles Lakers. No one with more pedigree than LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and the crew had OKC on the ropes over the weekend. We'll see what kind of path OKC draws out west. Craig, it's back to you.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Meanwhile, there's a new signal caller in New York not named Aaron Rodgers. This time, Justin Fields looks like he's the starting quarterback going into this upcoming New York Jets season. It has been definitely a rocky road from Chicago to Pittsburgh and now on to New York, but it doesn't seem like Fields has much interest in discussing the past.
I mean, I think I was asked to, I did what I was asked to do, and I've never had a problem with that. I've always been a team player. I've always been, advocating on, putting, myself behind the team. So, like I said, I'm not really gonna get too much into depth on, what was happened in Chicago and what happened last year with Pittsburgh. But like I said, I'm grateful for all the experiences that I've had. I met a lot of great people there, built a lot of great relationships that'll last a lifetime. And, I think, of course, the more time you have in the league, the more experience you have. So, like I said, I think I'm progressing and getting better each and every year. So, like I said, I'm excited to get things rolling this year.
Meanwhile, at the Masters, Scottie Scheffler makes a very long putt to put himself 2 under par, 2 shots off the lead already here in round one. We have a lot of the great golfers teeing off very shortly. Ludwig Åberg is one of the potential sleepers to win this year's Masters jacket at Augusta. He tees off at 1 p.m. Eastern, and he discussed the opportunity that stands in front of him as we get ready to play.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, obviously looking back to what we did 12 months ago, it was a really cool experience. Obviously, it was my first major, so going into that, I didn't really know what to expect, but it exceeded my expectations by a mile, and it was really cool to sort of feel all the buzz and have a chance to win late on Sunday was really cool, and it was very justifying in terms of where we were in my progress and in my ability. So I've used that sort of in the preparation, and it's really nice to sort of know that you can, and deep down know that you're able to do that and to be in that situation, because before I'd done it, I didn't really know, and I feel like at this point in time, I feel like I do know. So it's been good to be back, and looking forward to a good week.
We'll have Brady Kannon coming up next to discuss Åberg and everyone else at the Masters here. In fact, some of the big names set to tee off between 12 and 2 Eastern. So stay with us here on SportsGrid for that. By the way, afternoon baseball coming up today. We have 2 games set to throw out the first pitch at 1:10 Eastern. The first game will go off in Cleveland as the White Sox take on the Guardians. Right now, Cleveland is over minus 250 favorites on the money line. Gavin Williams will take on Jonathan Cannon. And also, the Angels will battle the Rays. The Rays play, of course, playing at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. Zach Liddell is the starter for Tampa Bay, and Soriano the starter for the Angels. That game, again, at 1:10 Eastern Time. Pharrell Coast to Coast has recaps, updates on all the baseball action coming up later today, live at 3 o'clock Eastern, exclusively here on Sports. When we come back next, Brady Kannon gives us some ideas as to who he likes in the Masters and recaps the first 2 hours. Don't go away.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 15.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread waters. I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength, need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro baseball today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm still optimistic eventually this will happen and they'll get it together. I mean, if Florida can get their act together, Sam, with the tribes, I believe that California can too.
Would bring a lot of money to the tribe, which is also something they really care about. It's an $8 billion market. Conservatively, could be even more when it legalizes. The sports books would be sharing revenue with the tribes, essentially doing all their operations and forking over a percentage directly to the tribes.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
All right, Brady Cannon's with us once again here. First day of the Masters underway, a couple of hours into golf. Brady's here with us. Brady, before we get into the leaders, and again, not a lot of data in totally yet. I mean, some of the best players in the world have not teed off, but Scotty Scheffler has and has already made his impact on the course at Augusta. Is anything playing any specific way very early or just way too early to tell here at this point?
Well, it looks like scoring conditions are favorable. We've got nearly a third of the field that is teed off so far under par. You've got roughly 55 players or so that are currently on the course. You've got about 15 of them that are currently under par. Jordan Spieth, another player, former champion, off to a good start, just made his first bogey of the day. He was 2 under through 3 holes, and then now 1 under through 4. You mentioned Scheffler. Scheffler off to a great start, 2 under through 4. And a couple of first-timers, Aaron Rai and Steven Jaeger, are currently in the lead. Rai at 4 under, Jaeger at 3 under. And we know first-timers typically don't fare too well here around Augusta National, and a couple of them there off to a good start. We'll see how this turns out pretty early in their round there. But I think probably the main takeaway right now, Craig, is the weather looks really favorable. And, the weather, we've talked about this throughout the week. It doesn't look like the weather's going to get too crazy at all. I think we're going to have very good scoring conditions. Right now, wind under 10 miles an hour, temperatures in the low 70s. Now, the course is still wreaking havoc on some players, as it will do. But if you've got your game together right now, I think the weather was cooperating. And what we're seeing for the forecast overnight is maybe a little bit of showers overnight that could, keep the golf course a little bit tame. And then the wind picking up on Friday into the neighborhood of 15 to 20 miles an hour. Looks like that'll be the worst day for any wind. So I think we're going to have a really balanced affair as far as scoring, weather. It should be just exactly perfect.
Yeah, good to have that good weather, because again, we don't want anything affected by that. As Brady mentioned, right now he is leading Aaron Ray, also Scotty Scheffler right there with a long putt. I mean, it looked like it could have been 30 feet. I don't know. It was a very long putt for that to go in. I'm just trying to toggle the app as I'm doing the show here. It ain't that easy. But let's take a look at the players yet to tee off here and get your thoughts on any of these. I know that you've sort of yesterday on the show more or less gave us some of the ones that you like here. But Tom Hogue, he is about to tee off here, 11:38 Eastern. That's coming shortly. Denny McCarthy before noon. Max Homa. I know Brooks Koepka is on your list for this tournament. He is currently 30-1. Tees off at 12:50. Xander tees off at 18-1 at 1:01 Eastern. And then we get the big names: Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, Jon Rahm, all before 2 p.m. Eastern. So I'm going to hold full judgment, Brady, if you don't mind, until these guys tee off too. But certainly it does feel like the latter half of the day is where all the bigger names are going to potentially be. That's what it looks like here.
Yeah, certainly, a strong finish there. Sepp Straka tees off really late too, I believe, maybe in the very final group, and he is certainly a guy on a lot of people's radar. I played him for first round leader. I made 4 plays late last night for first round leader. Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth. Spieth off to a pretty good start so far, has been first round leader here multiple times before, and then also played Russell Henley and Sepp Straka to get those first round leader honors. Those guys will tee off later. It looks like there's no bias as far as the weather teeing off early or late. You've got, the steady conditions throughout the entire day today. So I don't think there's really an advantage to teeing off early or late on Thursday. And we have not seen a bias in Masters past, whether you tee off early or late. It's pretty much a mixed bag of first round leaders, whether they tee off late or early. So no such advantage that we're seeing so far, Craig. But I would agree with you as far as doing any in-game wagering. I'm certainly going to sit on my hands for a minute here and at least let one round go to completion, and probably even 36 holes. I really like to see half the golf tournament kind of unfold before I reassess and decide if I'm going to do anything or not going forward.
That's when I get the text from Brady, usually very, very late at night. And I'm like, oh, it's texting me here. Oh, it's Brady. Okay, let me pop on the phone. All right, so Scotty, I know you like Scotty in the tournament, but not to win. He was not on your main card here. He is plus 400 to repeat. And, Jack Nicklaus won back-to-back. Nick Faldo, of course, everyone remembers the run that Tiger Woods went on. I don't think there's any question that Scotty's going to be in contention here, Brady. But I guess let's just ask you point blank, why was he not your winner this year?
Well, it's probably twofold. The start that he's gotten off to this season, it hasn't certainly been awful at all. It's just not like what we're used to seeing out of Scotty Scheffler the past couple of seasons. Of course, he had a delay with the injury to his hand and had to, sit out for a month or so before he got started, and really quite hasn't found that rhythm just yet from what we've seen so far on the PGA Tour. And then just the history of a defending champion. Like you said, Faldo, Woods, and Nicklaus are the only guys, I believe, to ever repeat as Masters champions. And beyond that, it's not only that they typically don't repeat, they typically don't even do that well in the follow-up season. Now, it's a little different from Scotty because this is the second time he's been the defending champ. So he's kind of used to this situation. But last year was a perfect example with Jon Rahm. After you win the Masters and then you come down Magnolia Lane defending your title, there's so much more attention, planning the champions dinner and the TV interviews. And, it's a different kind of environment versus when you haven't won it before and where your focus lies and the lack of distraction versus the new responsibilities. And like I say, Scotty, a little bit more experience with that type of thing, but that's really the reason. And then you've got the short price. And I have bet Scotty before at very short prices before, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. But I just didn't feel that this was the right time. In fact, both he and Rory, where their prices were, I could have seen them probably a little tick or two higher before I felt that was really a good number. Scotty at, 4-1, Rory at 6-1. Scotty probably should have been, in my mind, more like 6 or 7, and maybe Rory 8 or 9. And that would have been a number where, okay, I'm going to think about this, but it was too short where they went for me pre-tournament.
All right. Well, just a quick update here. We gave you all the positive. Let me throw the negative out there here for you. If you're holding tickets at the Masters thus far through round 1, Dunlap is 6 over. Taylor Pendrith is 3 over. So those are the two. I mean, look, a long way to go here. Let me see here. Dunlap is through 7, Pendrith through 9. Can't be feeling good with those tickets thus far. Got to give both sides.
Yeah, no, Nick Dunlap was a guy I actually had penciled in this week as a player I wanted to fade. I could not find the right head-to-head matchup with him, but he was a guy that I had targeted. And, maybe that's something to look at going forward if you can find an advantageous matchup with him in round 2. He was a guy that I did not expect to do well here. Pendrith is a little bit of a surprise. It is his first time, but he seems to have the type of game that would do well around here. Nikolai Højgaard was a guy that actually held the lead briefly last year, I believe on Saturday in round 3 for just a minute, and he got out to a good start today where he was 2 under par for a second, but now all the way to the other end of the spectrum at 3 over. Billy Horschel is really a mystery. This guy's been playing here a lot for a long time, a veteran on tour, very successful player. He just cannot figure out Augusta. He's 2 over par today. But like I say, so far the scores are pretty good. Robert McIntyre was a player I expected to do well. He's over par. But what is it now? We've got about, let's see, 19 guys under par, Craig. Scoring conditions, again, pretty favorable.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest positive surprise here, Bernard Langer, 1 under par.
Yeah, how about that? Here we go again.
Okay. We'll take that. All right, Brady, thanks again for coming on. Good luck this weekend.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 15.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread waters. I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength. We need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro baseball today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm still optimistic eventually this will happen and they'll get it together. I mean, if Florida can get their act together, Sam, with the Tribes, I believe that California can too.
Would bring a lot of money to the Tribes, which is also something they really care about. It's an $8 billion market. Conservatively, it could be even more when it legalizes. The sports books would be sharing revenue with the Tribes, essentially doing all their operations and forking over a percentage directly to the Tribes.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The NCAA tournament is officially in the books. We've moved on to the Masters here, which is currently underway. Let's bring in Simon Applebaum, and the podcast tomorrow will be televised to discuss everything happening in streaming and rights and sports wagering as well. Simon, great to have you here on the show. And, let's get started here and talk about the NCAA tournament, both the men's and women's. A lot more people streaming and watching this year.
Absolutely, Craig. And good to be with you on a Thursday, right before the Masters kicks their TV coverage in. We'll talk about that in a bit. CBS is very happy with how the NCAA tournament, they got a great final game on Monday night had 18 million people watching. It's the best performance since 2019, up 22% from last year. And Ian Eagle, by the way, who will be competing head-to-head with his son Noah in the Sports Emmy Awards this year for Best Play-by-Play. The nominations came out 2 days ago. Had a great call with Grant Hill and Bill Raftery. So terrific job by CBS, and of course they had the great One Shining Moment. When it came to the women's tournament, mixed results really for ABC. When you take out the ESPN Bird and Taurasi show, the ABC coverage, which we mentioned last week, was Sunday afternoon, 7.8 million viewers. It was down 56% from last year. Obviously, last year was an outlier because of Caitlin Clark in Iowa versus South Carolina. However, it was also down 13% from 2023. So, again, I got to say, if given, and I know there was a blowout performance, great performance by Connecticut against South Carolina on Sunday, but ESPN should, or ABC should work with the NCAA to put that game on in prime time rather than as a Sunday afternoon. Also, we got word on the college basketball crown tournament. That was first time around on Fox. They had 600,000 people watching that game, despite the fact they had no publicity about it whatsoever, and they had the Live Golf Miami stop as a lead-in, which did not. We'll talk about that a little bit. And also the NIT on the final game last Thursday on ESPN, despite no publicity whatsoever, 500,000 people saw it, which is really shocking given the lack of publicity at all. But great job by Chattanooga in winning that title. So bottom line, CBS very happy. ABC and women's basketball, not as great as last year by any means. And college basketball crown, given us a first time out, okay for Fox. And ESPN, NIT, dumper.
Yeah, and the crown game, if I'm not mistaken, bled into the Final Four coverage and game as well, which I don't think people expected there. All right, so the Masters is underway. Simon, you know, I've said this so many different times, and even this year it's even better. Their app is fantastic. I mean, you could just hit a button and literally watch all of the players that you bet on, that you like, live coverage. It's fantastic. I know it's going to pop on TV here coming up real soon. But there's just so many different ways to watch it this season. And it is the really premier event in golf over the course of the year. And it's treated like one by the networks as well. So I can definitely appreciate that and the Masters app as well.
Absolutely. And by the way, as far as TV coverage go, ESPN Plus kicks it off top of the hour. ESPN joins in 2 hours later. CBS has Masters highlights after your late local news, wherever you are. And then, of course, with Paramount Plus, and then CBS and Paramount Plus simulcast on the weekend, starting in the afternoon to conclusion. Two things I want, by the way, one change on the CBS coverage. With Vern Lundquist retiring, Frank Nobilo will take over at the 16th hole. Otherwise, the rest of the broadcast team is the same. What I'm going to be watching for, Craig, is how the LIV players do. There are 17 LIV golf players, whether it's John Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, I think Phil Mickelson, who had a pretty decent performance. He got a flash of greatness on the LIV Golf Tour on Sunday in Miami. It's going to be interesting to see how the LIV Golf players do, because right now, the LIV Golf Tour is in a very precarious spot TV-wise. First of all, it looks like they are not merging. The talks between the PGA Tour and LIV Golf, they're not going anywhere right now. And the LIV Golf Tour has been a bust so far on Fox and FS1. The ratings, the viewership is down from what it was in the CW. Part of the problem is bad scheduling by LIV of the early events. And part two, Fox is not promoting the coverage. You don't know when it's on FS1. You don't know when it's on Fox. The LIV Golf stop in Miami this weekend. You did not know that Fox used the LIV Golf Tour from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time as a prelude to college basketball crown the final game. And they never showcased it. And it's too bad, because of the very interesting tournament with Mark Leishman winning by one shot over Sergio Garcia and other people. So the question is, with LIV Golf in the precarious position is TV-wise, can they get a golfer from their bunch to score the green jacket?
Yeah, we will see. And, you know, certainly DeChambeau was close last year. All right, Ion Television expanding their coverage for the WNBA and the NWSL. Tell us more about how this may look.
Well, Ion has really shown in the last couple of years that they are diving deep into women's sports. And last night at an event at the Barclays Center, they announced probably their biggest move into women's sports yet. They're teaming up with Sports Illustrated to launch, you might say, an all-female Olympics-like competition. It's called the SI Women's Games. It is going to be held in California, late October to early November, taking place, of course, a week. It's going to be both individual women and teams of women from both here in the United States and around the world, competing in 6 sports, including basketball, volleyball, flag football, and combat sports. Ion will have the entire package. I understand this is going to be an every 2-year deal, so it's going to be very interesting to see how if it works well this year in 2027, year before the Olympics in Los Angeles, Summer Olympic Games there, how big this is going to be. Sports Illustrated is going to handle the event and how it's put together. I think it has a great idea. I think Ion is, again, on a roll with women's sports. And that's not all they announced, by the way, last night, too. They're also going to be doing a college basketball preseason tournament where some of the major teams are expected to play down in Florida. It's going to be very interesting to see how all that works out. And I think Scripps Sports, which is the parent of Ion, you're going to see more moves by them to really make Ion the women's sports network.
Finally, Simon, AMC Network. Once upon a time, big feature, The Walking Dead, right? Like that's very popular on AMC. Now getting into sports. What's going on here?
Sports docuseries. I was at AMC's network event last night. Great event with Janelle Monáe doing a knockout performance. AMC is getting into the sports documentary field. They're going to be doing a series with NFL Films, Skydance Sports, owned by the NFL in part, and Tom Brady's Williams of Sports venture. It's called Go Rush, and it's going to take place. It's going to deal with the San Francisco 49ers and their glory days. And they are promising original NFL Films shots has not been seen, plus exclusive interviews with Joe Montana, as well as Ronnie Lott, Jerry Rice, and the whole 49ers team.
Thanks, Simon. Have a great rest of your week.
You got it, Craig. Take care. Enjoy the golf.
All right. Coming up next, we'll give a live look at the leaderboard at Augusta and some last.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip, try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
They won the game, and a lot of people, I think, are, prematurely writing them off. Like, I heard a lot of people say they're not even making the playoffs this year.
What I give them credit for right now, Scott, I'm not going to pencil them to win the division yet. Let's see how they do. What I give the Red Sox credit for, and this sounds like silly, I give them credit for actually trying this year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Looks like throughout the show, Aaron Ray is going to end up leading the Masters here on our for day one edition live on NewsWire. I mean, we're only 5 minutes to go unless something crazy happens. That's who's going to be the leader when we get off the air. All right, now time to dive into some last licks. LeBron James has a new toy. Update again from the Masters, and Luka returns home to Dallas. Those are some of the topics we're covering for you as we wrap up today's edition of the show with some last licks. It was the story of the night for sure in sports. Luka going home, playing in Dallas. The Mavericks fans were all treated to T-shirts in a sort of basically going away party. I think it's fair to say. I don't think there was really closure from Mavericks fans until last night, showing the thank you video, seeing Luka crying on the sidelines, and then, of course, him putting up 45 points. But something very bizarre, honestly, happened before the game that I don't think a lot of people caught. Jason Kidd was asked about the trade of Luka, which, of course, Kidd is the head coach of the Mavericks. He was asked about moving him to L.A., and his response was very bizarre. I don't know that Jason Kidd knows the history of Major League Baseball, but I'm going to shed some light on it. Here's what he said. He said, trades happen. Some are comparing it to Babe Ruth, which is kind of cool. Not really sure that Kidd understands the dynamics of that trade, but it was Boston trading Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees, who went on to win a zillion championships, and the Red Sox owner got some sort of failed Broadway play out of it, and the Red Sox won nothing for 100 years as well. So in this case, are the Mavericks the Red Sox? If so, they may never win again. Not really sure of the reference on this one, but it would be cool if Babe Ruth was referred to as, the Lakers here, not so much the Mavericks here, unless maybe Jason Kidd did refer to the Lakers here. I don't know. Really bizarre. Well, available for purchase, folks. Speaking of the Lakers, in case you are interested, LeBron James has a new toy. Legitimately a new toy. And in this case, it's Mattel making a new LeBron James figure. But you're not going to see LeBron James wearing a Lakers jersey or even holding a basketball. They unveiled a new Barbie Ken doll. And he's the first ever, is LeBron James, Ken Ambassador. Yeah, there it is. Now, I will say that this Ken doll, so to speak, does make LeBron look very cool. But what this has to do with basketball and how we are correlating it to Barbie, I have no idea. Needless to say, this will be available coming to your toy stores if they still exist out there. By the way, I am pretty sure that it's really hard to find a toy store these days. Maybe you could buy it at like Walmart or Target, something like that. Toys R Us was my go-to for many years for me and my kids, but no Toys R Us around here anymore. Either way, Ken doll available. LeBron James, he's one of them. Finally, the Masters, as it continues here today, and our coverage continues here at SportsGrid, get this, over 225 private jets, folks, that's a lot, arrived and departed Augusta on Tuesday alone, with another 1,000 arrivals expected over the next 5 days. Someone even flew in 14 hours from South Korea to watch the rounds at Augusta. And I got to tell you, I'm jealous. I said this earlier in the show. This is one of the few things on my bucket list to go and attend. I will not be taking a private jet to get there, but I am putting this high on my list for things to do in the future. But for right now, I'll be watching it, streaming it along with all of you, and obviously this weekend here on SportsGrid. So we will be right back here tomorrow with extended coverage again here of the Masters, and the live leaderboards will go through it all. The current odds. Again, some of the bigger names are teeing off later this afternoon, so make sure you stay on the grid, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. But first, I want to thank Adam Kaufman, Brady Kannon, and Simon Applebaum for coming on the show and diving into a little bit more as to what's going on in all the major sports. For those of you who want really the more finite update of round one of the Masters, here's my advice. Tune in next to Smiley Kaufman, because he's got you covered. Of course, he is there at Augusta, and then Pharrell Coast to Coast at 3 o'clock Eastern. He will have the live leaderboard as to the performers in round one. Game time decisions comes up after that, followed by in-game live game day. And then Gabe hits you up with Sports Rage tonight as the NBA season and NHL seasons are officially coming to a close. The final games of both sports about to wrap up this week. And then, of course, next week we dive into the playoffs. Also, thanks to our director, Luke, and for my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Don't forget, the Masters app is cool. Here's what's cooler, the SportsGrid app. You can download it just by taking out your phone and scanning the QR code. It's available for both iOS and Android, and you can follow along all the Masters scoring there. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See you back here tomorrow, our next edition of NewsWire as we wrap up.